You okay? Marcus Williams asked the question softly, his deep voice slicing through the cold December wind. The woman didn't answer at first. She was slouched on a stone bench just outside the towering glass doors of the firm's downtown Chicago office. The night had emptied of its party magic. On were the clinking glasses, the holiday jazz, the polite laughter. What remained was bitter wind, leftover confetti sticking to the sidewalk, and Victoria Reynolds, head of corporate strategy, wrapped in a glittering dress now dull in the low light. Her arms wrapped around herself. She didn't lift her head. Marcus took a step closer. "Victoria, it's freezing. Let me take you home." Still no answer. He crouched beside her, and that's when he saw. Either mascara was streaked, her breath shallow, her body trembling. She wasn't just drunk. She was utterly alone. There was no driver, no assistant, no friends lingering behind, just Victoria and him. With a quiet sigh, Marcus slipped out of his wool coat and gently wrapped it around her shoulders. "You can't stay out here," he murmured. "You'll get sick." Only then did her eyes flicker open, hazy, confused. "I missed my ride," she said, voice cracked. "They all left." "I'm here," he said simply. She tried to stand, but stumbled immediately. Without hesitation, Marcus caught her in his arms. She didn't fight him. Her head rested against his shoulder like a child's. She weighed less than he expected. He carried her to his car, a reliable 10-year-old Ford, and buckled her in. She slumped sideways, mumbling something about being strong too long, before falling into a fragile sleep. Marcus looked at her for a moment before starting the engine. And if this moment moved you, if you believe that compassion still matters in a world that too often looks the other way, then don't just scroll past. Drop a 1 in the comments if you stand with kindness, if you believe in the quiet strength of a black man who chose to stay when it would have been easier to walk away. Like this video if you felt something. Subscribe to the channel for more powerful, heartfelt stories that remind us what humanity really looks like. Traffic was light. The city was winding down. Snow flurried gently across the windshield as he made his way to the address he'd only seen once. A corporate memo announcing her promotion. Her building had a doorman who barely blinked when Marcus carried her in. "Penthouse?" the man asked, pressing the elevator button. No other questions. Upstairs, the apartment was what he expected. Sleek, modern, expensive, but cold, like a hotel suite, dressed in wealth, but empty of life. No photos, no books, no clutter, just polished surfaces and curated art. He laid her gently on the bed, removed her heels, pulled a light throw from the back of the couch and covered her. She stirred once, eyes barely open. "You stayed." "I wasn't sure you were safe," he said. For a moment, her hand reached for his, then it dropped. Marcus pulled a chair close to the bed. He didn't mean to sit long, just a few minutes, he told himself. But as the hours passed and the city turned to stillness, he remained silent, sentinel beside a woman who hours ago wouldn't have said 10 words to him. Sometime past 4 a.m., her breathing deepened, her body relaxed. Confident she was resting safely now, Marcus stood. He scribbled a quick note. "You were outside. I brought you home. No harm done, Em," and left it on the nightstand. Back in his car, the sky had started to lighten. He drove straight to the south side where Maya was getting ready for school. She met him at the door in her coat and boots, holding a to-go cup of hot cocoa. "You didn't come home," she said, worried. "I had to help someone," he replied. "You ready?" They walked to the car. The wind was still biting, but in a different way. Marcus glanced back once at the sunrise, casting golden streaks over the city skyline. Something had shifted. He didn't yet know that this simple act of compassion, moment of staying when he could have walked away, would change both of their lives. That the storm hadn't passed at all. It had just begun to whisper. The next morning arrived with a sharpness Marcus could feel in his bones. The cold outside matched the weight in his chest. He had dropped Maya off at school, her little hands clutching a foil-wrapped peanut butter sandwich, her curls bouncing as she waved goodbye. Now the streets of Chicago pulsed with their usual rhythm, indifferent to what had happened hours ago. Marcus pulled into the parking garage beneath the firm's main office. He checked his reflection in the rearview mirror. No signs of fatigue, at least none that showed. But inside, he hadn't slept.
Not really. He had spent the night replaying every detail around that bench. The heaviness of her in his arms, the flicker of recognition in her eyes when she realized he had stayed. Stepping into the elevator, he nodded at two junior analysts who barely acknowledged him. That was odd. Usually they offered a polite, "Good morning, Mr. Williams." The door closed. On the 15th floor, something felt different. The air in the open office was off. Quiet, yes, but not the normal Monday quiet. This was loaded, stiff, the kind of silence people use to measure distance. He approached his cubicle. On his monitor was a calendar notification. 10:30 a.m., HR meeting, conf room 2B. No subject, no sender, just a red flag blinking in the corner. Marcus stared at it for a moment, jaw tight. By 10:25, he was walking into room 2B. The first person he saw was Jennifer from HR, already seated with a company-issued tablet and a forced smile. The second was Victoria. She was composed, crisp white blouse under a navy blazer, hair pinned back, not a trace of the vulnerable woman from last night. She looked at him once, then looked away. "Marcus," Jennifer began, gesturing to the seat across from her. "Thanks for coming." He sat. "Something I should know about?" Jennifer tapped her screen. "We received an anonymous concern this morning regarding last night's party." Marcus didn't move. "What kind of concern?" Victoria finally spoke. Her voice was low, careful. "It's not an accusation, I woke up this morning unsure of how I got home, and when I realized I'd been brought there by someone from work without remembering, it raised questions." "You were outside alone in the cold," Marcus said evenly. "I found you on a bench. You couldn't walk." "I carried you to my car and drove you home." Jennifer's brows furrowed. "Victoria, is that how you remember it?" I don't remember much," she said. "I remember being cold and then nothing." Jennifer's tone stayed gentle. "Marcus, this is an informal check-in, but while we clarify the circumstances, we're going to ask you to take administrative leave. It's not disciplinary, just procedure." He looked from Jennifer to Victoria. Her eyes didn't meet his. "I left a note," Marcus said, "next to your bed." Victoria flinched, just slightly. Jennifer closed her tablet. "You'll be on paid leave. It will suspend your credentials this afternoon. We just need space to make sure everything's clear." Marcus stood, the air suddenly too heavy to breathe. "Are you serious?" "It's just a precaution." He didn't argue. What was the point? Outside the room, the hallway seemed longer than it had ever been. The Christmas decorations were still up, red bows on cubicle walls, a small artificial tree near reception. They looked like lies now. Back at his desk, Marcus quietly powered down his computer. As he grabbed his coat, his phone vibrated. A text from Amanda, his old college friend, who was now a civil rights attorney. "You okay? Saw something weird about you on a firm gossip blog. Call me." Marcus clenched the phone in his hand. He drove home in silence. Maya would be at school until 3:30. The house was still. The framed photo of his father smiling in his postal worker uniform stared back at him from the mantel. He sat down in the armchair and let the weight settle. They didn't ask what happened. They assumed. He looked over at the small lockbox in the hallway closet. He hadn't touched it in years. It held only one thing, a flash drive. Years ago, he had started recording things, not out of paranoia, but habit. One too many meetings where credit vanished, one too many jokes that crossed lines. He had learned the hard way, black men didn't get the benefit of the doubt. He opened the box, inserted the drive into his laptop, scrolled past old folders labeled Q3 Budget Meeting and 2019 Diversity Committee until he found the one from last night. He clicked play. The audio crackled, but her voice was clear. "They all left. Even Tom. I was just sitting there like a damn ornament." Then his own voice. "You okay?" Silence. "I'm just tired of pretending like I belong in their world. They don't want me here either. I'm not drunk. Not really. Just empty." Marcus hit pause. She hadn't remembered saying that, but he had the proof she did, that she was coherent, vulnerable, real. But would it matter? He sat back and stared at the ceiling. This wasn't just about protecting himself anymore. Something deeper had been cracked open, somewhere between the glittering company gala and that silent elevator ride.
A line had been crossed, and not in the way they thought. This wasn't a scandal. It was something far more dangerous. It was the truth. And the cost of it had just begun. The afternoon passed in a blur. Marcus stayed home pacing. He reheated leftover chili but didn't touch it. Outside, snow powdered the sidewalks like sugar. His street was quiet, a far cry from the polished world of downtown Chicago, where silence could carry accusations sharper than words. At 3:20 p.m., he pulled up in front of Mia's school. She ran to the car in her puffy lavender coat, her backpack bouncing behind her. She climbed into the back seat and buckled in. "You didn't go to work today?" "Nope," Marcus said, smiling in the rearview mirror. "Had a day off." "You never get days off." "Well, maybe I should start." She studied him for a second. "You okay, Dad?" "I'm good, sweetheart. Let's go home." They drove in comfortable, quiet Toured. Marcus kept one hand on the wheel, the other tapping a beat on his thigh. His mind kept circling back to the audio recording, to the note he'd left on Victoria's nightstand, to the look in her eyes when she couldn't or wouldn't acknowledge what happened. At home, Maya kicked off her boots and ran to the kitchen. "Can we finish decorating the gingerbread house?" Marcus forced a grin. "Absolutely." They worked side by side at the table, icing sugar windows and lining up gumdrop lights. For an hour, the world narrowed to frosting and sprinkles in Maya's laughter. He needed that. It reminded him who he was, what he was anchored to. Not a job, not someone else's opinion. His daughter, his promise. Later that night, once Maya was in bed and the dishes were done, Marcus sat on the couch with a cup of tea. The apartment was quiet, the kind of quiet that settles into your bones. His phone buzzed. Unknown number. He hesitated, then answered. "Marcus?" It was her. Victoria. He didn't speak right away. She sighed. "I wanted to say thank you for what you did." "You don't remember it," he said flatly. "I remember parts. I remember being outside. I remember your coat. You stayed until I was sure you were okay. I found the note and the water glass and the heels neatly by the bed. That wasn't something someone does if they're trying to—" She stopped. "If they're trying to hurt you," Marcus finished. She swallowed hard. "I've made a mess." He let the silence stretch. "I never meant for HR to get involved," she said. I told them I didn't remember, and next thing I knew, the protocols kicked in. You could have stopped it." "I was scared," she admitted. "Not of you, of how it would look. A senior executive, drunk, taken home by a subordinate? Do you know how many women lose everything over assumptions?" "And how many black men lose everything over them?" Marcus shot back. Silence again. But this one hit harder. "I'm sorry," she said, voice low. Marcus stared at the floor. "It's not just about sorry, Victoria. I've worked here 6 years, never missed a deadline, always stayed late. Mentored interns. You know how many times I've had to outwork people to prove I belong?" She didn't answer. "Now all it takes is one bad assumption and I'm on leave. I didn't ask for that." "You didn't stop it either." "I know." There was something in her voice now. Cracks. Real ones, not the polished corporate veneer. He didn't know whether to feel vindicated or exhausted. "I heard the recording," he said. Her breath caught. "You said you weren't drunk, just empty." She didn't deny it. "I saved it," he said, "but I haven't sent it to anyone." "Why not?" "Because I'm not like them. I don't need to burn someone down to lift myself up." She exhaled shakily. "I don't deserve your grace." "I'm not giving you grace. I'm protecting my name." A beat passed. "Marcus, would you meet me tomorrow? Not at the office, somewhere neutral, just to talk." He paused. "Why?" "Because I owe you more than this." He thought for a moment. "There's a coffee shop off 18th and Prairie, South Side, 10 a.m. I'll be there." He hung up. The next morning, Marcus stood in front of the mirror, adjusting the collar of his coat. Maya sat at the kitchen table, swinging her feet and eating cereal. "You're going back to work?" "No, I'm just meeting someone important." He considered that.
Maybe more than I thought. The cafe was small, locally owned, filled with worn wooden chairs and the smell of cinnamon and coffee beans. Old jazz played faintly from a record player in the corner, the kind of place where people stayed for hours and talked about life instead of business. Victoria arrived 5 minutes late. No heels today. Flat boots, a wool coat, less makeup. She looked almost human. Marcus stood as she approached. "You're braver than I thought," he said. "I had to see you. Not as your boss, just as me." They ordered saddeningly. The awkwardness was a third person at the table. "I've spent years building a wall," Victoria said. "I thought if I looked tough enough, worked hard enough, I'd be safe." Safe from what? From being seen as weak, from being overlooked, from becoming invisible. Marcus nodded slowly. "I get that. But I see now the walls don't keep people out. They trap you inside." He didn't reply, just sipped his coffee. "I don't know how to undo what's been done, but I want to make it right." He looked up at her. "Then start by telling the truth." She nodded. "I will. To HR, to the board, to everyone who matters." Marcus leaned back. For the first time, her voice didn't sound like it was reading from a script. He didn't smile, but something inside him loosened. The silence between them wasn't gone, but it had shifted from suspicion to something closer to understanding. Maybe, just maybe, this wasn't the end of something. Maybe it was the beginning. The following week brought a strange quiet. No emails from HR, no callbacks from IT, no new developments. Just waiting. Marcus had returned to the rhythms of his day, making Mia's lunch in the morning, listening to her talk about school projects, jogging before dinner, but beneath it all was a tension that pulsed with every breath. On Thursday morning, he received a message that broke the silence. "Please come in Monday. We'll clarify everything. Jennifer, HR." He read it twice. No subject line, no details, just a summons. But the weight of it filled the kitchen like smoke. Maya looked up from her drawing. "You're going back to work?" "I think so." She smiled, toothy and proud. "Told you they'd realize you didn't do anything wrong?" He kissed her forehead. "Sometimes the truth takes a little while to catch up." Monday came, and Marcus stepped back into the firm, sleek glass building with the awareness of someone walking into a courtroom. The security guard greeted him by name, but without warmth. The elevator ride to the 15th floor felt longer than usual. When the doors opened, the hush that followed was unmistakable. Some people looked away. Others didn't even glance up. Jennifer met him at the reception area and led him into the same small conference room as before. This time she wasn't alone. Victoria was already seated, dressed conservatively, hair pulled back. A man in a gray suit, someone from the board, Marcus assumed, sat beside her. "Marcus," Jennifer began, "thank you for coming. We've had time to look into the matter more thoroughly." Marcus nodded. "I hope that means fairly." Victoria spoke next. "I asked for this meeting. I want to set the record straight." The man in gray folded his hands. "Miss Reynolds has submitted a formal statement correcting the narrative. She's explained that Mr. Williams acted appropriately at all times and that her earlier concerns were due to confusion, not misconduct." Marcus didn't react. Not yet. "I also informed them," Victoria added, voice steady, "that I requested Mr. Williams' help and that he ensured my safety in every possible way. I apologize for the delay in coming forward. That's on me." Jennifer cleared her throat. "With this, we're closing the internal review. You're welcome to resume work effective immediately." Marcus looked at each of them in turn. "I appreciate the clarity, but clarity doesn't undo what it cost." Victoria winced slightly but didn't argue. After the meeting, as he walked back to his desk, a few coworkers offered him quiet nods. Not quite apologies, not yet forgiveness, but something. He didn't sit. Instead, he turned and walked to the elevator, down to the lobby, out into the street. The cold bit harder now, but his steps were sure. He took the train down to Bronzeville, where Amanda's law office occupied the second floor above a laundromat. She looked up from her desk when he entered. "You're early." "It's done," Marcus said. "They cleared me." "Let me guess," she said dryly. "No apology, no formal admission of mishandling, just an invitation to return like nothing happened." "Exactly." Amanda leaned back, arms crossed. "You want to sue?" He shook his head. "Not yet.
I want to understand something first. She raised an eyebrow. What's that? Why? She froze. Amanda sighed. Because power doesn't guarantee courage. Victoria's been climbing their ladder so long she forgot what it means to risk falling. Marcus nodded slowly. She said she wants to make it right, but words are easy. Amanda narrowed her eyes, then tested them. That night, Marcus received a message from Victoria. It wasn't a text, it was a voice recording. I don't know why I'm sending this. Maybe because talking is easier than writing. I need you to understand I wasn't scared of you. I was scared of the truth that being helped by you would force me to face. That I've spent years believing I had to be tougher than everyone else, especially the men, especially the black men, just to survive in this world. That night you were kinder than I deserved, and I couldn't admit that without breaking the image I built. Her voice cracked near the end. Then, I'm sorry for the silence, for the harm. I hope someday you'll believe I meant that. Marcus replayed the message twice. He didn't respond right away. Instead, the next day, he invited her to lunch. They met at a small diner near the edge of downtown. Checkered floor, red leather booths, the kind of place that had been there since the 60s. Marcus ordered coffee. Victoria sat across from him, hands clasped tightly. I listened to your message, he said. Thank you for that. I meant every word. He studied her. You said you've been climbing a ladder your whole life. What if there's another way to lead? She tilted her head. What do you mean? I mean, what if leadership isn't about being harder than everyone else? What if it's about being real? About standing up when the easy thing is to disappear? She looked down at her coffee. Then I've been doing it wrong for a long time.